So let's jump right in. I think that's interesting that you said pride is something kids need to learn about, because I think the argument with Target right now is it's something they shouldn't be learning about.
Right.
Having to explain, perhaps in the sense, the way you're describing it is, perhaps in the sense that there's an ideological movement and that they're going to start coming across people who are espousing these things, as opposed to what the left view is, in that you should be teaching children about overt sexual proclivities.
So Kirk's book is not about the LGBTQ stuff. It's just about pride and humility. It's
Okay. Not
right.
I thought you meant like pride
Right.
in the
Yeah.
like it's Pride Month or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay, yeah, no, I agree. I think, with Target, there's a lot of people saying like Target's always done this, and I'm like, yeah, well, I think parents are finally getting fed up with it, and I think the issue is, it's one thing to have a parade, it's one thing to have, in this neighborhood you're doing something. The problem has always been many of these people are stepping over the line, in that, like the pride parades, you have a lot of nudity. You have a lot of gratuitous adult activity happening on the streets, things that aren't legal, to be completely honest. I don't even know how.
Yeah.
And that's been that way my whole life. But when it comes to the Target issue, I think it's parents are walking into Target, and then they're seeing their kids are with them. And then I can't imagine what it must be like, and you guys can tell me, having your 7-year-old say, what is homosexual mean, or
Right.
what is LGBT refer to, and then now you're tasked with, I haven't even talked to my kid about normal reproduction.
Yeah.
How are we jumping into kink and these other things, right?
Right. Yeah, it's confusing for him. I mean, my oldest is about to turn 3, so I haven't been faced with that yet personally. I know you have, Josie, but I could only imagine it's got to be super confusing for kids. I mean, it's kind of confusing for me. So yeah, they've just gone way too far, and I'm happy that the Christian conservative movements are flexing their muscle a little bit, because a general principle in life is that what you get in life is what you allow, and
Right.
Christian conservatives have just allowed this. They've allowed the corporations to slap them across the face time and time again. And so it's nice to see that, this giant of the silent majority is starting to wake up a little bit.
It is interesting to me that we had a caller on Timcast IRL last night for the members show, saying that, asking, do we think that allowing gay marriage opens the door to what we're seeing now? And my response is the very traditional liberal response of, if two adults are going to go do something private in their own home, if they want to be there for each other in the hospital, like I don't care about that. I think they should be allowed to be with the people they love and care about. The idea that because one thing happens, we now are faced with groomers and things like that, I disagree with. I think the issue is, it's one thing to say, look, those two people can do what they want. It's another thing to be like, we sat by and did nothing as people started trying to enter schools to groom children. The fact that there is this major backlash, I think, shows people are not accepting of everything. And I understand there's obviously a correlation, right? The pride flags, everyone, stuff like that. But I think the fact that you're even seeing traditional liberals be like, hey, man, get that stuff away from kids.
Yeah.
It shows that there's a red line for everybody that we may tolerate, or we may say, okay, fine. Like, we want to make sure everybody can be with people they love, but not when it comes to you indoctrinating kids and doing all that stuff. So I think the red line's there. I think people are pushing back.
Yeah. It's whenever it gets into the public square where kids are hanging out and kids are seeing, that's whenever I think that we have to draw the red line. And I think churches have let us down. I think governments let us down in just letting it just be absolute chaos in the public square.
I mean, to say governments let us down is, like, what else is new? But
Yeah.
but I also think it's institutional capture. The people who want to implement these policies will start taking roles in government, knowing they will get the power over you, and they will start implementing these cultural changes. Now you have in schools kids being shown. I think what was the book? I can't remember which state it was. The teacher brought in the book that it's called "This Book Is Gay."
Yes.
And it has, overt adult activity descriptions.
How to do it.
It even explained to children how to use adult anonymous gay sex apps. And they're giving it to middle schoolers. They're kids who are like 10 or 11 years old.
Whoa.
And it's like, okay, no. That woman should go to jail. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like that's a criminal charge to go to a child and be like, here's how you can go on these anonymous apps and engage. Like, what are you doing? You can't do that. This is what's happening when they start infiltrating these spaces. And I think you see two kinds of people: the overt, the people who infiltrate and then want these things in the schools, probably pedophiles. And then you have the ideologically captured people who don't know, don't care, and just like, I'm going to do whatever the mob does. I'm going to do whatever the crowd does.
Right. They're just scared of speaking up. And for
Well,
whatever
they go along with it. Like, I don't think this teacher, well, it's hard to say. On one hand, I'm like, Occam's razor would suggest a teacher who provides that information to these kids is a pedophile.
Yeah.
In the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. But if we start to make more assumptions, if we get a little bit more conspiratorial, or maybe that's not the right word, it's this regular old teacher is ideologically captured by algorithms and press so that she's putting these books in front of kids just because it's popular. And I'm like, yeah, that's a strong possibility, but I look at it like 60-30, I think, or 60-40. The simple answer is anybody who tries to teach a child how to use anonymous adult gay sex apps is probably just a pedophile.
Yeah. I agree with that.
The thing that they do, they conflate it with burning books if you don't let it happen. So porn's always been banned in school. Always been banned in schools. This is not a new thing, but they'll tell you, no, if Republicans are book burners if they don't let the kids read, you're keeping kids from reading. And then when they say this, they put up books like To Kill a Mockingbird. You know, they're not putting up Genderqueer, which, you know, shows incest and two boys doing adult acts on each other. You know, they're not saying it's these books that are horrific. They're saying it's these books about Black people, you know, right. So things so that the average listener is going to be like, well, that's bad. Like,
when we've got Genderqueer here, Ian bought it, and I think conservatives need to read it. They never do. And I've asked a ton of conservatives, like, have you read this book? And they're like, no, but I've seen the pictures. I'm like, you have to read this book.
I feel like if I read that book here, this channel would get...
Oh, no, hands down.
Absolutely.
Like,
but you want to give
no
it
question.
to middle schoolers?
If we were to read and show the pictures, if we did like we're going to read Genderqueer, we get a strike, no question. Absolutely. It's got overt sex acts in it. But the book itself is about horrifying child abuse. And this person does not know they were severely abused. And so as someone who grew up in an extremely psychologically and emotionally abusive household, they think that's normal. And to them, because it's baseline, anyone who says there should be structure and there should be order is clearly a fascist. When you come from a world of total chaos, any amount of order is fascism.
Yeah.
For the average person who understands there's a balance between order and chaos, authority and liberty, and we're trying to find the right balance, typically leaning towards liberty, we know what fascism is. When people like this start taking control and abusing people, but in the book, the woman who claims to be non-binary explains how she couldn't read till she was 12. She would relieve herself outside. She would use she would use pads, menstrual pads that were so old they were crusted with blood, which made her smell so awful that she had to be called into the counselor's office. The other kids would make fun of her over her social awkwardness and inability to communicate properly, and her stench. And so what ends up happening is this young woman conflates all of that social trauma with being a woman, saying, but boys don't have to do these things, therefore being a boy is better. And then in the book, she says she is sexually aroused at the thought of being a man. So when she has, that's what she says. The inference from that is, she says she's a teacher. If someone comes and if a woman says that she is sexually aroused at the thought of being a man, she does literally say that in the book. And then explains how she wants children to call her a man. I'm like, okay, I think this person's a pedophile.
Yes, that's pedophilia. And if she was sexually abused at a young age, from my understanding with the book.
Well, I don't think the book doesn't say that she was sexually abused.
Okay.
She was emotionally. I think it's abusive to have your child urinate in the yard
Yes.
outside.
Okay. all
I
right,
think
this
it's
is-
abusive to have your kid not be able to read at 12. And she had to teach herself how to read because she wanted to read Harry Potter so bad. I mean, it's a horrible story.
That's so sad.
I think it's abusive, extremely physically abusive, to send a girl going through puberty, experiencing menstruation, with dirty old pads crusted in blood. That is when you get Child Protective Services to come in and say, something's wrong here.